This edition of Italy TV is sponsored by Cola Vita, extra virgin olive oil. And Cheerio chopped tomatoes.
Antoniette La Vecchia and her Italian-American theater. Teatro, delle Albe at Scuola d'Italia Guglielmo Marconi. Second episode of Fred Plotkin, How to Taste Italian Wine. A biography through images reviewed by Stefano Albertini. Calandra Institute presents Finding the Mother Lode.
My name is Antoinette LaVecchia. I was born in southern Italy. I came to America when I was a little girl, and now I'm a professional actress in New York City. We are at the George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Today is the first day of rehearsal for I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. It is a theater adaptation of the memoir about Giulia Malucci. Giulia Malucci is also an Italian-American who works for Vanity Fair now, and she wrote this book about her life and how she used to cook for bad boyfriends. We had a meet and greet. We met everybody who works at this theater. So we met the artistic director, David Saint. We met the entire staff, the people who work production on the set, the people who work selling tickets, the box office. We met everybody. Then we got started in rehearsal and we're working on the script, page by page. We're not moving, we're just talking. I've never lost my girlhood ideal of finding a husband of my own and cooking for him and us eating happily ever after.
This is really an important paragraph in her spine.
Yeah, this is it. This is the thing.
And I think that struggle there, it's like, this is what I was saying, this is what has to be alive in you. These guys are kooky, but if you just blame it on them.
But it's also my story, Antoinette. Yeah. I tell stories about my terrible dating all the time, and they're very entertaining. But at the end of the story, I'm always like, so why am I still single? I very much identify with Giulia's story. I am single. I'm in my 40s, exactly the same as Giulia. And we're both Italian-American, we're both funny. Her father was born in the town next door to the town I was born in Italy. I was born in a small little town called San Rufo. My parents were born in this town. My brother and I were conceived and born in the same bed. And we were there, and my father was like, I want my children to have better opportunity. There was no employment in southern Italy. He wanted us to be educated, get work. And so my dad went first, and then he sent for us. And there's a passport picture of my mom and my brother and I as little babies, and we look so scared. And no matter how many times my girlfriends warn me, take it slow, Giulia. Don't give it away so quickly, Giulia. I just can't hold back. I have to cook for him. For me, a new boyfriend is an opportunity to show off the thing I am most confident about, my cooking. We moved to Connecticut, and my dad got a job. And slowly but surely, we moved to a very nice town where my dad was the caretaker of a 400-acre estate on the water. We had 2 gardens that were huge. My dad made wine downstairs. My mother made homemade pasta every Sunday with cows and horses and sheep and chickens. So it was like we were back in Italy, except you'd drive 15 minutes out and you'd be in America. I went to college and then graduate school, and my parents hated theater because they were, you have to work, you have to make money. And my brother went into business, very proud, and I went into theater. It scared them, but Now it's been 25 years. And so they're a little bit used to it, except that every weekend my mom calls me and she's like, lascia questo teatro sempre. Always it's about leaving theater. They don't like it because there's no security. You think about people who left their country and their family to come to America for opportunity, and then their daughter wants to be an actress. This is the worst. My need to be in theater was so big that even though they were strong, I still kept doing it. The life of an actor, it's not a normal lifestyle. You're a gypsy, it's different. The satisfaction comes from moving somebody, moving their heart in some way. I mean, I love making people laugh. I love it. But I also love making people cry. I want them to feel something. And when they do, and then they enjoy themselves, and then they come up to you after and say thank you, it brings them so much joy. And that means the world to me.
This is our Italian city. Let's take a little journey with us.
È la terza volta che veniamo a New York con gli spettacoli. Questa volta non siamo venuti solo con lo spettacolo, ma anche con i workshop, anche con gli incontri alla Montclair State University, e quindi è quasi un mese di permanenza in questa città, e credo che per noi sia molto importante perché ha il senso non solo di fare lo spettacolo, ma di lasciare delle tracce, di lasciare dei segni che forse possono sedimentarsi anche in futuro. Io lavoro da 20 anni con ragazzi e adolescenti di tutto il mondo, di tutte le lingue e di tutte le culture, e quello che più mi ha sempre sorpreso, ma sorprende anche i nostri spettatori, è che quando i ragazzi sono in coro e cominciano a cantare e a ballare, tu non riconosci più le diversità, cioè le riconosci come un dato di ricchezza e non come un dato di discriminazione. Il vero segreto del teatro è il coro, è l'essere un coro che crea poesia.
IACE, the Italian American Committee on Education, has been involved in this project since last year with Marco Martinelli, il Teatro delle Albe, and la Scuola d'Italia. And we have Corpus Christi students here. They will be performing today with students from la Scuola d'Italia. They have an amazing Italian program. The school is in Harlem. It's their second year of Italian, and they are doing an amazing job.
Quest'anno abbiamo appunto la Scuola d'Italia, la Corpus Christi, abbiamo avuto una parziale adesione da parte della Unis School ed anche di altre scuole, e quindi siamo riusciti a portare in scena quest'anno Scuola, che è sicuramente un teatro molto particolare, non tradizionale, ma che parla ai bisogni profondi degli adolescenti, arriva direttamente al loro mondo.
So the company Teatro delle Albe joined us at Montclair State University for 3 events. So the first one was a workshop with the students of theater and students of the high schools where Italian is taught. And it was a great occasion for students to work with Marco Martinelli and Ermanna Montanari, both on issues having to do with the group and the individual and how they interact in creating theater.
I liked the experience. It was different. I like trying new things like Italian. I started Italian classes this year, and then they asked me to participate in the play, so I said okay, and it's a different type of play. It's a nice experience.
It was an amazing experience, especially participating in this Italian program. I think I learned a lot, and I really had an amazing time here.
È una bellissima esperienza, e comunque lavorare con un regista di così grande importanza è bello, una forma di teatro veramente diversa, non usuale, che comunque ci insegna a essere più liberi da da ogni restrizione, anche dal comportamento che siamo soliti usare a scuola. È una bellissima esperienza.
È tutto divertente alla fine, perché comunque il modo in cui Marco Martinelli gestisce la regia è molto diverso, non è convenzionale, e quindi lo spettacolo è come se facessi ogni prova è la prima, perché non sappiamo mai cosa sta succedendo, e quindi quella è la cosa più divertente.
Io credo che sia un nodo che riguarda l'intera umanità, perché tutti siamo stranieri a noi stessi, ma tutti siamo anche fratelli gli uni agli altri. Non conta la lingua, non conta la cultura, siamo tutti figli della stessa madre, e questo dovrebbe essere il primo pensiero politico che noi e gli uomini politici dovrebbero avere, prima di affrontare poi le questioni tecniche, legislative, ma prima di tutto dovrebbe esserci questo pensiero di profonda umanità.
Quello che passa è un messaggio di speranza, è un messaggio di positività, che è quello che noi vogliamo comunque sempre trasmettere ai giovani, soprattutto noi educatori, che abbiamo la responsabilità di formare le nuove generazioni alla speranza di poter costruire un mondo migliore. Quindi questo è il senso più profondo del teatro di Marco Martinelli e della nostra scuola, e noi speriamo di poter continuare a New York questa esperienza anche negli anni futuri, perché naturalmente New York, con la sua energia, con la capacità di cogliere e rappresentare il nuovo, è l'ambiente ideale per questo tipo anche di sperimentazioni.
Let's live the Dolce Vita.
We are at the annual tasting of the Gambero Rosso Tre Bicchieri, 3 glasses. What I'd like to do today is discuss with various wine producers who I admire how to taste a wine. The artichoke, I think, is very difficult to pair with wine. What wine do you drink with carciofi?
Absolutely nothing. If it's a crude carciofi, it's very difficult to drink. I suggest to cook carciofi. For example, a carciofi pie. My suggestion is to drink absolutely pigato.
What characteristics do you find in the nose of this wine, of the pigato?
I must say that the nose of pigato is typical of Ligurian people. It's similar. We don't open to foreign people at the first time. So the nose is a little bit close. You must wait, warm the wine, and in the mouth it giving the maximum of expansion of flavors.
How to taste a blended white wine?
The 3 grapes that are blended in here really add to that color. You get a little bit of the goldenness from the Friulano. The Sauvignon gives kind of a green hue, and the Pinot Bianco kind of keeps it neutral.
What would I look for in the nose with this wine?
Definitely the Sauvignon on the nose gives more honey and melon, lighter fruit tones and fragrances.
It is very complex. What do you get in flavors, plural?
There's a brightness initially in the wine. There's a lime and a great minerality that comes up initially, but there's a really nice mid-weight that comes through your mouth because it's got a little bit of sweetness, great acidity, and a really nice long finish on it.
Powerful, wonderful. Would you describe some of the fragrances you get in the nose with this Brunello?
The nose is a typical Sangiovese nose. So violet, rose, and then after the wood, the tertiary part is coming out. A touch of leather, pepper. It's a very complex wine. You can have a large spectrum of flavor.
It is very balanced. So when we're talking about wine tasting, among the things we look for are not only characteristic fragrances and flavors, but balance. If one is imbalanced, it will taste too much alcohol, too much tannin, which is what wine is made of in part. I tasted it 2009 and now it's 2014. It's still a very young wine. And the temptation is to drink it now. Don't. I would get one now and put it down for 5 years minimum, even 10. A genuine Chianti Classico. You are the president of the consortium of Chianti Classico. Would you tell us what makes a Chianti Classico a Chianti Classico?
The interpretation of Chianti Classico that I like to do is to find its beauty in being both at the same time a delicate and elegant wine, and vibrant is the vibration, it's the combination of these three moments that make the Chianti Classico a very special and unique Chianti Classico.
As they say in Italian, abbiamo finito in bellezza, we finished in beauty. And this is Fred Plotkin with Emanuela Stucchi-Prinetti reporting from the Tre Bicchieri annual tasting here in Manhattan. Ciao.
Check out Italian Genius.
The Leopard by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa is without any doubt one of the most important, popular and widely known novels of the 20th century. Its author, Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, was a Sicilian aristocrat that lived a very retired life, mostly in his palaces, and surrounded by his family and a very restricted circle of friends. Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa didn't live to see his success as a writer. His novel was published shortly after his death in 1957 by the publisher Feltrinelli in Italy, after having been rejected by other Italian publishers such as Mondadori and many other important ones. And the fact that he acquired literary fame only after his death contributed to the myth of this author that was surrounded again by some sort of mystery. A great part of this mystery is now being revealed or unveiled by the adoptive son of Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, Gioacchino Lanza Tomasi, that many of you might remember as an exceptional director of the Italian Cultural Institute of New York. Gioacchino Lanza Tomasi collected in this book photographs, portraits, paintings and documents from the archive of the Lampedusa family, as well from other sources. And he really opens up the doors and the windows of the palaces in which Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, the author of this fundamental book in Italian and world literature, lived. And through the images that Gioacchino Lanza Tomasi collects and presents in this book, we also have a rare view in what the Sicily of the time of Lampedusa was. A Sicily that has been largely destroyed, in part by bombings during World War II, but also in part by a savage speculation and real estate dealt in a way that is quite irresponsible according to our standards. But what is more important is the way in which Lanza Tomasi shed lights on the life of this fundamental author of Italian literature. Again, you will be able to see just from the images and also by reading the essays that accompany it, a man of rare and refined elegance, a man that cultivated an ideal of beauty that is definitely reflected in the way in which he writes, and at the same time a man that reflects on the dawn and the decline of a social class, the aristocracy, in a Sicily that is no longer what it used to be.
Coming up next are exclusive events. Why don't you come and watch them with us?
The idea for finding the mother lode came from the fact that the experience that the Italians had in the West Coast was very different from the image that most people have of the Italian immigrants. Most people, when they think of Italian immigrants in America, think of the Little Italies of New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. And we made a film on that experience, Pane Amaro, Bitter Bread. And when we showed that film in the West Coast, a lot of people said, our story is different. You should make a film also on us. And so we started doing some research, and we realized that their story indeed is different. The Italians who went to California were able to use their skills, and more than it happened in the East Coast. There were a lot of opportunities in California, and the Italians were able to take advantage of those opportunities. Those who came with the experience of being farmers were able to continue farming there. The same thing happened to those who were able to make wine, or the fishermen. They found opportunities in California to actually use the skills, the cultural capital that they had. That allowed them to integrate in the American economy and California economy rather fast.
What do you think of when you think of California? You think of vineyards. And it wasn't until Italians came here, put in the vineyards, put in the fig trees, the olive trees, the cypress trees, that you have the kind of landscape that today you identify as California landscape.
What was also interesting was that California was a multicultural and multi-ethnic society from the very beginning. There were large numbers of immigrants from Asia, from China, who came also for the gold rush. But Italians were seen as more akin to the other Europeans, and therefore more acceptable. They became part of the white fold. They had access to land, they could buy land, they could become citizens. And this was certainly true for the first wave of immigrants that went in the early days, the 1850s, 1840s, 1860s. There is a second wave of Italians that came towards the end of the 19th century and the early 20th century. They did not always experience the same level of welcome. It's important to remember that things were not always wonderful for the Italians.
December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. The war was really a watershed event, and that wrought a fairly large change in the Italian communities throughout the country, I think. What that did was put a kind of stigma on Italian culture, really. People were afraid to be too Italian. They were afraid to speak Italian in the grocery stores. In fact, some of them had signs in them saying no Italian spoken for the duration of the war.
What was interesting about the Italian immigrant experience in some way is that it's a journey that has been more or less completed. So you can kind of trace a whole journey, which is often not possible, for instance, of newer immigrants. So you don't kind of have a sense of how this journey is going to end. And what was interesting also, and we've had people from many different backgrounds tell us this, that the Italian story is not that different from the story of others, of other immigrants.
In fact, I think this was the spark that really originated this whole research and the two documentaries. The fact that when we visit Italy very frequently, and when we were there in the 80s and 90s, we started seeing how difficult it was for Italians to accept foreigners in their midst. It seemed almost like that they had gone through some very strange amnesia, having forgotten the fact that many millions of Italians emigrated, and the reasons why they emigrated, and how difficult it was for them. We thought it was important to try and inform the audience, the public, of this very important part of history that will help them also understand and cope with the immigration that now Italy is experiencing, and in a more humane, in a more organic fashion.
For the next week, we have a special surprise for you. The whole episode will be dedicated to Zucchero, the Italian king of blues, who is in New York for his Americana Tour 2014. You will get to know the artist, his life, and his sources of inspiration. And you will get a lot of music too. See you next week with our Zucchero special.
This edition of Italy TV was brought to you by European Flavors, promoting organically grown fruits and vegetables in the best European tradition. And Baci Perugina chocolates, say I love you the Italian way.